times men get crazy on paternity court.
Let's really keep it real. You're not the first woman nor the only woman in this room that has loved the wrong man for too long.
A woman cannot empower men.
What are we on, Game of Thrones?
She was sleeping at the same time with someone else.
First of all,
This isn't one case. The case starts with Ms. Reed and Ms. Austin. Ms. Reed says that Ms. Austin's child doesn't belong to her husband, Mr. Ronelle Wallace, and that Ms. Austin is a mere homewrecker. Ms. Austin, on the other hand, says that her child belongs to Mr. Wallace, and Ms. Reed should leave her alone.
Married until you divorce. And you have 3 children who are counting on you to handle that maturely and respectfully, unlike how you acted in here today. Now let's go back to Miss Austin. Have you gotten yourself together? You okay? Step on up here. I want to hear from you.
Ms. Reed says after taking back Mr. Wallace for the second time, she married him. Ms. Austin, on the other hand, says that when she met Mr. Wallace, he wasn't married. She says she only found out about their marriage on Facebook when Mr. Wallace posted about it.
So you're a changed man?
Yes.
Your Honor, the cycle the cycle is not going to stop when right here.
All right. You know what? I'm going to get to the paternity results in a moment, but first, I need to read the results of Mr. Wallace's lie detector test.
From all of this, it seems like Mr. Ronelle Wallace is having the time of his life with these 2 beautiful women. Ms. Reed says it's impossible for Ms. Austin's kid to be for Mr. Ronelle because she was sleeping with another man at the time. Shockingly, the man Ms. Reed says Ms. Austin was sleeping with is now dating Ms. Reed.
You admitted to having sex with 4 other women that were not involved in this case during the past 3 months. You just admitted it. So during this test, you were asked, other than what you told me, have you had sex with any other women in the past 3 months?
But where is Mr. Ronelle exactly? Let's see what he has to say about all of these allegations. He's in the courtroom, and we can promise you he's a piece of work.
Don't be ashamed. Look, first of all, let's really keep it real. You're not the first woman nor the only woman in this room that has loved the wrong man for too long. So that right there, let's just be honest with that. Look, and Ms. Reed is clapping for you on that, so you don't hold your head down, lift your head up.
Mr. Wallace admits to being intimate with Miss Austin, but he doesn't believe that her child belongs to him. However, Ms. Austin says this is a lie because her child looks exactly just like Mr. Wallace. Ms. Reed wants the child to belong to her boyfriend, who is Ms. Reed's ex-boyfriend, because she wants Mr. Wallace to focus his love and care exclusively on the 3 other kids she has for him.
I never had anybody to show me how to treat a woman or to be a man, or I'm just here for my kids. Where I'm from, the way that I treat women, it's the only way I know. That's the only thing that's accepted from where I'm from.
But things are about to get even more complex. It appears that Mr. Wallace hasn't just been messing with Ms. Austin and Ms. Reed. There is another woman who says he's the biological father of her 5th baby.
Let's be honest, you didn't have to come.
I want to be a better father and a better role model to my kids.
I need to say something to you now that you've made your apology. As I sat here earlier and watched you, I said to myself, wow, this guy's really acting like a jerk. But I think the important word in that sentence was acting.
What? Before we dive into that and figure out if Mr. Wallace is the father of Ms. Roberts' baby, let's take care of the case we have right in front of us right now. He's the father of Ms. Austin's baby.
And we are going to make sure you have the resources to become the kind of man and the kind of father I know you want to be. Now it's time for the DNA results. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, Miss Austin, because things were so volatile, it's an emotional time, I'm going to ask that you leave the courtroom.
But that's not where this case ends. The sage continues, and Mr. Wallace, who's been the paragon of coolness, loses in court and is sent out on the orders of Judge Lauren. Right after this, the judge orders another DNA test to see if Mr. Wallace is the father of Miss Roberts' child. Before we do that, let's learn a bit about our dear Miss Roberts.
There are times in life when you have to just look at a situation and know, I have just done everything possible that I could do wrong. Okay, now what? You stated your truth. You've made an earnest apology.
Mr. Wallace says he forgot to tell me Roberts that he was married when he met her. Yes, that's the word he used. Forgot. Tells us that he doesn't believe Mr. Roberts' child is his because she doesn't have any of his features. It's very scientific, Mr. Wallace. Great job.
Those children are counting on you. Get it done. Nowhere to go but up from here, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Court is adjourned. So we have learned that Mr. Wallace is in fact the father of Ms. Roberts' child. How do you feel?
All of this over Mr. Wallace? Really? Is that really what's happening? It's so hard for the judge to get even a word in. And guess what? It gets even worse.
I love my kids dearly, but I shouldn't have
You
got
just
married.
don't love their mothers.
Correct.
So let me ask you this.
Correction, he's lying because he was texting me a couple of weeks ago telling me how he still loved me. So you honestly still love me, the relationship just over with.
Ms. Austin thinks she's going to be the next Mrs. Wallace, and Judge Lauren cannot believe it. Why would she choose to marry a man who's proven to be a serial cheater and liar? What does she hope to gain from doing that?
What are you thinking?
Probably just falling for what he tells me, what he's saying.
You falling for what he tells you? But if you hear what he's done in all of these accounts of these women, do you realize all you all are telling the same story? It's the same story.
Ms. Austin says she believes Mr. Wallace has changed and will now be a good husband to her and her kids. But that's unlikely because even right now, Mr. Wallace is still cheating on her. The lie detector test he had before the court tells a different story about Mr. Wallace's intentions with Ms. Austin.
Mr. Wallace, you were administered a lie detector test. In advance of taking the lie detector test, you admitted to having sex with 4 other women that were not involved in this case during the past 3 months.
Mr. Wallace admitted it before the test was even administered. Can you imagine that?
Ms. Austin, do you still want to be Mrs. Wallace knowing this?
No.
I can't hear you.
No.
It seems like it almost hit you by surprise, like you weren't expecting to hear that. Look at me. Don't be ashamed. Look, first of all, let's really keep it real. You're not the first woman nor the only woman in this room that is of the wrong man.
Things get almost violent again when Ms. Reed calls Mr. Wallace a cheat.
You would
With
cheat
more
on your
women,
wife
yes,
more.
I would do it again.
Because you feel
Because
like
she is a whore. She cheated on me. She slept with my friends.
He started
She
saying,
is a
"Who's your
whore.
friend?"
She has a bad
Let's get some
boyfriends
order.
right
Let's
now.
get some order.
You don't come on here and try to act like
Hold on,
you
Mr.
so perfect.
Wallace, you're not gonna address a
listen to
woman in
me.
this courtroom that way.
That
You
is not
better pipe
acceptable.
yourself down.
And it gets even crazier. Judge Lauren ends up kicking Mr. Wallace out of the court, and he doesn't leave without a little more drama.
Mr. Wallace, get out the court. Get out the court.
And don't
You know
touch
what?
me.
Hey,
You
what are you gonna do
sorrier
about
than
it?
I thought you were.
Let's go.
Get
We're going
out
out
the
of the courtroom.
courtroom, Mr.
It won't be done.
Wallace.
You don't
Mr.
be done.
Wallace,
Go out.
leave the
God don't scare
courtroom.
me.
Go out of the
I'm from
courtroom.
Chirac, boy.
I don't care. Go out
Leave
of
the
the courtroom.
courtroom, Mr. Wallace.
Mr. Wallace had to have a moment, but now he's back in court and has apologized to everyone for his behavior. Now, it's his time to explain why he is here in court and explain his behavior.
Had anybody to show me how to treat a woman or to be a man, or I'm just here for my kids. Where I'm from, the way that I treat women, it's the only way I know. That's the only thing that's accepted from where I'm from. Just need help just need help.
Now, it's time to finally see if Mr. Wallace is the father to Miss Roberts' 5-month-old child.
Mr. Wallace, you are the father.
I gotta go.
Mr. Wallace, how you feel?
Glad that he's my son, and I apologize for like the past 2 years. It's been going on every day, and I apologize.
The craziest men in paternity court don't attack Judge Lauren. Instead, they say the darndest things. And one such man is Mr. Silver, who claims it's normal and okay for men to cheat. He is also denying a child he had with his girlfriend, Ms. Reeves. Ms. Reeves, on the other hand, claims that Mr. Silver is 100% the father of her 7-month-old legend.
We've been on and off for about 3 years. Right now, every single time I turn around, it's always, oh, are you sure that he's my baby? Are you sure that he's my baby? Yes, I'm 100% sure. Like, why do you keep asking me? And don't get me wrong, he's a good guy, but I just want us to be able to move forward in our relationship without having any more arguments.
Says he just doesn't trust Ms. Reeves and believes that she's just tricking him into making another man's kids his own.
You grew up loving sex.
To me, I always felt like it was okay for men to go out, have sex, and, you know, cheat, come home to their family, and women can't go out, have sex, and, you know, come home, and especially with a baby, you know, trying to say that I'm his father.
That's heavy, and it somehow gets even worse. Mr. Silver says he believes that God created men to conquer and rule, and women just can't behave like that. So when women cheat, they are subverting God's will for their lives, but when men cheat, they are doing the normal and proper thing. But just one question. Does Mr. Silver think God would be all right with him having premarital coital relationships? He probably does, seeing as he believes all these cuckoo ideas.
They're meant to conquer, to overrule, and women cannot empower. Women cannot empower men.
What are we on, Game of Thrones?
You see what I deal with every day.
Oh, what are we talking about? First of all, you said God created men to conquer,
To
and
rule
what
and
else?
conquer, and women
to rule.
cannot overpower.
We have just got to say Ms. Reeves is God's strongest soldier for putting up with this man every day.
You said God created men to conquer,
To
and
rule
what
and
else?
conquer, and women
to rule.
cannot overpower men.
You're ridiculous.
This gonna be a long
You see
hearing.
what I deal with every day, right?
So in the conquering and the ruling of man,
Mr. Silver simply cannot take what he dishes out. He expects his girlfriend not to cheat on him, but he expects her to be okay with him cheating. But even if we accept that it's God's will for all women everywhere to be cheated on, that says nothing about the paternity of legend, which is what this case is about.
Well, we was broken up at the time, but immediately, as soon as I told him that I was pregnant, he was like, oh, okay, with who?
Your Honor, we were broken up for 4 weeks, Your Honor. I called her texting her ex.
and is that why you broke up?
Yes, Your Honor.
When you
I
confronted
confronted
her
her
with
about texting her ex. You know, this ain't, you know, I caught them texting multiple times.
Mr. Silver says that Ms. Reeves claimed that she was just friends with her ex, but he didn't believe it. So one day he tried to check her phone for evidence, and she just changed her password on him. It doesn't seem like Ms. Reeves respects his all-conquering authority as a man in that particular case, and he's just in court to complain about it.
So when she finally got out of the bathroom, I was like, so you're texting your ex and you changed your password. What you gotta hide? And that's exactly.
But my whole thing is like, why do you keep asking me what I have to hide when every single time I turn around, it's another female texting my phone like, oh, I was just dating I was just dating your boyfriend. Your boyfriend is my boyfriend. That's our boyfriend.
That's right. Mr. Silver, following his mentality about women, says it's all right for him to have multiple girlfriends, but thinks his girlfriend is cheating if she locks her phone. Great mentality, Mr. Silver. Where did you get it from? The Middle Ages?
So if you're texting your ex, changing your passcode, and then you all are broken up, and you then say to him, I'm pregnant, I can see that he might have some doubt as to who you may have been having sex with during the window of conception.
Mr. Silver says he and Miss Reeves were broken up for about 3 or 4 weeks before she told him she was pregnant.
So on her Snapchat, she's turning up, getting lit, you know, with men, you know, drinking, smoking. So how do you expect me to believe that you've been gone for 3-4 weeks, then come back to me telling me you're pregnant?
Ms. Reeves said she was 3 months pregnant when she told me Silver that she was pregnant. So regardless of what she did during that 1 month when they were broken up, he still would be the father of her baby.
Who was the father? So I did not believe I was the father, and I was not with her during her pregnancy. I was only there to be supportive during the birth.
So in that moment, despite your doubts, you said, I want to be there at the hospital when the baby
Yes, and
is born.
throughout the whole time I'm telling her I want a DNA test. In the hospital, none but her family was there. I was by myself.
He says that he signed his name on the birth certificate because he wanted to protect me, Reeves, and didn't really understand the legal ramifications of doing so. Mr. Silver also says that he's been financially there for Legend since the day of his birth and has even introduced him to his family as his child. Furthermore, he says the DNA test will keep his mind at ease and make it easier for him to work on his relationship with Miss Reeves. Now let's find out who the father of Legend is after all.
Mr. Silva, you are the father.
Now, I'm sorry, and you know, I did have my doubt with Legend, but I know that he's my son, and I would truly, fully love him. And I want us to move on in our relationship.
Ms. Fendoyan is in court today to prove to her on-again and off-again boyfriend of 12 years that her 3-month-old son is his biological child. She believes that his paternity denial is destroying their relationship, and she needs him to take responsibility so that the relationship can continue. Mr. Rowland, on the other hand, says the kid doesn't belong to him, as Ms. Fendoyan was intimate with another man weeks before he learned of her pregnancy. At the end of this, you'll probably wonder why Ms. Fendoyan wants to continue a relationship with Mr. Rowland anyway.
He keeps denying my son, constantly denying him. His family is always putting a bug in his ear. That's not your child. He don't look like him.
That is not my child at all.
You're gonna see? I know who I slept with, and I know my baby.
How? If you was with me, you was with somebody else at the same time. Like,
I know who I lay in
talking
bed
about?
with, and I know the days I
Ms. Fendoyan is very clear that she knows who the father of her child is.
had our first child. Everything was good. It was perfect, you know? Things started getting rocky. I came home from work one day, and this man says he's going to the store.
Ridiculous.
Going to the store, you know, you wouldn't think nothing of it. Your man going to the store. He goes to the store, that man go missing. 2 days, where you at? I go to his family house, and what do I see? Opens the door with a chain of hickeys all over his neck.
Mr. Rowland doesn't deny this. He says that he had hickeys all over his neck because he wasn't with Ms. Fendoyan at the time, and he could do whatever he wanted with whoever he wanted, and no one could question him. Ms. Fendoyan says that's a lie, but Mr. Rowland says Ms. Fendoyan might have thought they were together, but she is definitely mistaken. What does that even mean anyway? They were either together or not. There's no halfway here.
So did you say you were going to the store and never came back?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I sure did. I had 2 girls. I didn't need her at the time. I had 2. I was dating 2 girls at once. Come
But that's
on.
why you kept running
That's the best
back,
of both
right?
lives right there.
That's why you kept running back, right?
That's a really brave thing for Mr. Rowland to say. He doesn't care at all about Ms. Fendoyen, and he makes this clear to the court. Ms. Fendoyen says after Mr. Rowland left, she waited patiently for a month and a half. When he didn't return, she decided to let things go and pursue her interests. Apparently, this made Mr. Rowland angry.
I went to Albany and I picked up a friend that became more than a friend. That actually did something you couldn't do.
So you admit you started having sex with this new guy?
Yes.
All right, so then what happened?
So we started sleeping around and he kept calling, crying. Don't go there.
We met in junior high school.
Anyway, the bottom line is Ms. Fendoyen and Mr. Rowland still came back together at some point. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be here in paternity court arguing over the paternity of a baby. So how did that happen?
He kept coming back like a tail.
No. You
He
kept calling
coming
me.
back,
She's crazy.
And I just kept taking him in.
She's
We
crazy.
already have 1 kid together. Why not? So I'm gonna sleep with you. Me and
you
this
were
boy,
sleeping at the same time with someone
all right,
else.
First of all, yes, I went back and forth. Yes, I did.
Yeah, so how are you gonna try to pin this child on me?
Now the picture gets clear. Mr. Rowland, also known as Mr. Multiple Hickeys Around His Neck, and Mr. 2 Girlfriends kept coming back to Ms. Fendoyen for some intimate time in the sheets. Mr. Rowland admits this, but says the child she conceived during that period cannot be his because he was using condoms with her. But there's an even bigger question here.
Not that time.
Okay.
So how often were you all being intimate at that time?
Here and there.
Here and there?
Here and there, nothing serious.
You mean how many times she was intimate with the other guy?
I mean, how many times? He says they were broken up, but then they say they're still intimate. I'm just trying to figure out what is going on.
From their answer, we are going to guess the truth is a lot of times. Mr. Rowland's mother's best friend is in court today to back her son up, and here's what she has to say.
Guys lined up in front of her door, kicking her door, wanting to get with her and that. And, you know, to put it like this, Tanya has more traffic than the Statue of Liberty in her home.
Right there. This is my proof right here.
I'm totally confused about all this because, you know, she told me she was pregnant in April.
According to Ms. Matos, Ms. Fendoyen needs to get her story straight. She also says that Ms. Fendoyen manipulated the timeline of the pregnancy to make it look like Mr. Rowland is the father. Mr. Rowland agrees with this.
Are you doing some timeline manipulation, Ms. Fendoyen?
That's exactly what
Yeah,
it is,
okay,
Your Honor.
I
That's
wish.
exactly
I'm
what
sorry.
it is. Because the other guy's not around, so she needs somebody to be there for this child that's not mine.
And he would be a
Okay?
perfect.
Ms. Fendoyen says she didn't know the baby's father when she got pregnant, but when she went to the hospital and they gave her her conception date and her due date, she realized that it was around the period that she'd been messing around with Mr. Rowland.
So, Ms. Fendoyen, you submitted a calendar to the court which outlines the window of time you were having sex with Mr. Rowland again. You say you started to have sex with him again on May 8th. If we go to the next page, you also indicated you were having sex with the other man.
Then Judge Lauren pulls up a calculator to find the exact window of conception to finally get to the bottom of all of this. I won't spoil it, but you probably already know what the turnout is going to be.
Birth date is
January 30th,
January 30th of what year?
2019.
2019. We press calculate. The window of conception would be May 5th to May 13th.
See?
It appears that the dates don't neatly line up. The child could belong to either Mr. Rowland or the other man. However, Ms. Fendoyen says that doesn't matter because the baby resembles Mr. Rowland all the way.
Is on the phone with his mother. Come on, let's be for real.
Oh my.
The baby came out. It wasn't even 60 seconds. They plopped the baby on my chest. This is him. The baby kind of looks like
No.
our
told
other daughter.
specifically it looks nothing like me.
So she says he said the baby kind of
His
looks like.
mother gonna ask him what the baby looked like.
Mr. Rowland says that is impossible because when he went to see her, he would see the other man around all the time. Ms. Fendoyen says that all of this is annoying, and the only reason she messed around with other men is because Mr. Rowland abandoned his children in the first place. And she's correct. Now let's see who is the father.
Mr. Rowland, you are the father.
You dummy, how you could tell your mother the same?
That's
There
all I
you
Then now
can
my
do.
son again, I did.
Nothing more I can do now.